I'd also like to further highlight what my friend from Scarborough Southwest just said, because I don't believe we've ever met, and I'm from Scarborough Southwest, and I'm a member of that riding association. So, my name is Steve Chatsbasile, and I am from Scarborough Southwest. And it was funny because I read a quote recently at I think it was at the last provincial or the federal election on somebody's website that said, it was a quote from Plato. And he said, those people who are not interested or don't get involved in politics end up being governed by inferiors. And I think, in a lot of cases we've seen that locally. We've seen it locally and from our riding associations all the way up to the powers, in Parliament Hill. When I was a young Liberal, one of my main reasons for joining was because somebody was talking about living in a fair and just society. And I think we've gotten away from all of the recommendations. We as members of our own party haven't even demanded from our political representatives the mechanisms that would make it fair and just. So we have to take some culpability there. But my main question here is, what are you guys going to do as president or prospective presidents to make not only the party a fair and just society, but the policies that we engender and we want to export out to the rest of the country, fair and just as well?
Let's try to keep this one very brief, just of course in the essence of time. Sheila.
Well, I think in the essence of time, I think Canada is a liberal society. It's a small L liberal society, and it's a small L liberal society because over the years, we had a big tent party that was able to pull in the best of capitalism with the best of social justice. And we've lost that recipe because we haven't been able, as a party, on an organizational level, to have a big tent. And I think bringing back the big tent, starting by, we talk about the drop in voters. 1.5 million Liberals did not vote in the last election. And engagement in encouraging them to vote starts at the local level. So I think the first thing we need is communication. And I hope within 2 weeks of actually being successful, if I want to appoint an official communications person in every riding in the country and an official social media person to do the interconnection, to start speaking out on Jim Flaherty's budget. And that's going to happen in every riding in the country. We empower you to take the message forward because we all own the demise of the party. It's not one person in Ottawa who started the spiral. We all contributed, and I think we can all rebuild it back.
Going back on the communications, absolutely, but we need a communication strategy that actually messages emotionally with Canadians. And we are a party of fact-based policy, and I absolutely defend that, but we also need to connect with their emotions, not just with their intelligence. And we've been failing that. We haven't told a story. And we definitely need to invest the money and the resources to have a proper marketing and communications department in the party, not just at the riding level, but at the national level, that will allow us to do that and get connected to Canadians again.
Ron, why don't you go ahead?
Okay. And that's the communication strategy needs to be strategic communications. The Conservatives have a long-range view. They want to turn Canada into a Republican paradise. And their messaging is endless. It's consistent. They never miss an opportunity to pass that message on. Our communications have again reflected the views of the leader's office, the dynamic of the leader's office, which is short-term tactical. Strategic has meant the middle of next week at the furthest. And I think the party has a responsibility to take that long view. So the party, as opposed to the leader's office, has to have some communications resources that plot a long-term strategy for the party that goes beyond the next election.
I think a lot of the challenges that we got with the party, in my view, come back to an assumption that we were always going to win the next election, right? So if you're always going to thinking you're going to win the next election, you're going to get back into government, and you start putting a lot of stuff off to the side, right? And you also don't want anybody to say anything crazy that's going to kind of deter from what's going to happen in the next election. So don't say anything controversial. Don't step out of the box. let's just play it safe. And I think that's part of the issue here, right? Is that we started kind of squelching new ideas coming forward and discouraging new ideas coming forward. So that's number one. What we've got to do is be able to encourage more of that to happen. But we've also got to, in my view, be a party that reaches out and is constantly engaging with the community, constantly talking to community members and finding out, as Ron said earlier, what the issues are, what they're caring about. And the one thing that I proposed, that if I was elected next weekend, that we've got to start busting down some walls within the party and the silos, right? So for example, we've got 34 caucus members. Those 34 caucus members do not represent the entire country, obviously, right? We've got members all across the country that are engaged with their community, that sit down at coffee shops, find out what the issues are. So before the House session, the next House session starts, we should hold a teleconference call, similar to that one that we had in June, the extraordinary convention, engage all Liberals across the country, get the leader of the party, the House leader, to say, explain what the strategy is and get some feedback from the members across the country, what they think the issues are, what they think we should be focusing on in the House. Every week before question period, should allow members to propose questions that would then get asked in the House of Commons. So maybe one leader's question, one critic question gets asked. And that's when you start getting a dialogue going back and forth within the party that connects into the community, so the party starts talking about things, in my view, that are more relevant to Canadians and resonate more with Canadians.
Time for about 2-3 more questions, so pass it on over here. You're good? Your question's been answered. Go ahead.
Hi there, my name's Chris. I'm from Toronto Centre, so welcome to my neighborhood. And my question is very simple. How do you get a downtown Toronto pinko cyclist like myself talking to an oil worker in Fort McMurray who might support, how's it going? Who might ardently support the tar sands, for example? So my question is really, how does the Liberal Party encourage, in such a diverse, large country, Liberals to talk to other Liberals so we can find common ground on issues and win? Because I want to learn more about what people in Alberta think, and I'd love to tell them about cycling in Toronto.
Can I take that one? That's a great question. So right now, the way ideas come forward in the party, they either come forward from your riding association or from your student club, right? And so, by nature, it's kind of geographically constrained, right? So you're kind of talking to people that are in the same area that probably share some of the same views, and you're not getting a lot of diversity. What I think has to happen in terms of how ideas and how policies are developed in the party is to allow ad hoc groups to form. If there are Canadians, Liberals across the country, in Vancouver, Toronto, Fort Mac, wherever, that share the desire to work on ideas. I mean, I'm saying this is like this is new. I mean, this is what happens outside of the Liberal Party all the time now online, right? And that's what the environment that we've got to recreate, where we facilitate them linking up, facilitate them then saying, okay, we're going to work together on this idea. And we give them a mandate within a year to come up with that idea and put that forward, and it would have the same standing as a policy resolution that came from a riding association or from a student club or from a commission. And that's how you get, in my view, better policy where the trade-offs are taking place and the debates taking place between the pinko cyclist from downtown Toronto and the Fort Mac oil worker, right? Number one. Number two, culturally, we've got to stop jumping over people, on top of people who say something that is maybe outside the box. And there's a good example just last week. Who's on this Facebook page, Liberals Rebuilding the Liberal Party? A few? That's right. Quite a few people. I mean, that is, by the way, an excellent example of where people are just looking at the party and saying, okay, the party's going to do whatever you want, but we're going to create a forum where we can actually discuss and debate issues. But there's one thing that happened on there a week ago that disturbed me, right? And it was somebody, when the motion came forward, I started getting some publicity about getting rid of the monarchy from the Young Liberals. And someone did a posting there that said, this is the most asinine idea, this is crazy, this is stupid, this should never happen, this is exactly why we've got to get rid of the Young Liberals, they shouldn't be coming up with these kind of ideas. That cannot happen within the Liberal Party. You will never have ideas come forward. So thank you for the question, it's a great question. Thanks.
I think she was itching to answer.
No, I have a different approach because I think I think there are lots of good ideas that need to be interconnected, and there are lots of forums, and the party needs to modernize itself. But I've actually thought about how we can manage to prepare to set the table for the next leadership, because we have about 18 months. And while a lot of these forums are extremely important, on a riding-by-riding basis, we have a council of presidents that didn't get a quorum in the last telephone call. We have 308 ridings who have a focused discussion but don't interconnect, partly because we have not parsed them out geographically and demographically. And what I'd like to do on a structural basis, starting on the 15th of January, is actually run the 308 ridings like 308 polls. And just like an election, you need to start with your weakest polls first. We have a 4-year period between now and the election. This is the year we focus on the weakest polls, and you take the 75 to 80 ridings that are the weakest ridings in the country and develop their interconnectedness in a group. I think you're going to find some commonalities. On the plus side, in downtown Toronto, for example, has a huge amount of commonalities with downtown Calgary. And I'd like to see Calgary and Toronto and Montreal interconnected, because if you're urban, if you have a large visible minority population, if you have a large gay population, if you're close to a university, there's a good chance that you're going to be on the winning team. We've lost visible minorities in this community, for example, and I think we need a visible minority caucus. I mean, Toronto is majority non-white, and in this room, we're not connecting. So I'm actually very strategic by saying, let's look at the 75 or 80 ridings, divide us into 4 different groups, start a council of presidents with a smaller group but with common interests, and find solutions. And I'll just give you one example, which is, and I'm sorry for going on so long, but the Library of Parliament, there are 74 caucus members because we have 43 senators. My math is probably wrong. We have 43 senators and 34 members of Parliament. We have 70-something members who've never, 40-something members who've never been asked to do anything. I would ask one of our senators to commission a study in the Library of Parliament looking at the depopulation of rural Canada since the arrival of the Harper government, doing a 5-year retrospective, and then equipping ridings to take that information once it comes forward and go out and include debates in communities. Since this great government has come that you've been voting for all these years, this is what's happened. We need to do some analysis, and then we need to go to the people. And I like to do it in a very strategic way, so we're actually targeting the places that we'd like to see as winning ridings in the next election. There's nothing wrong with the debate of ideas, and ideas are great, but you need on-the-ground organization and interconnection to translate those ideas into people who get to polls, to vote for you, to bring back a great liberal wave.